We're not live yet? Oh, we are. Okay. We have a new paradox. We'll talk
All right,
about
here
it
we go.
some other time.
Okay. Is it a hump or a drop? What do you say? You got to twist your words in every which way, because the motto will always dictate what you do. Everybody knows that you've got the model affliction blues. Is it a straight line or does it curve? Some people unclamp it, but that is absurd. We all know that the model will always dictate what you do. Everybody knows that you are model afflicted blue. Model affliction. It's your addiction. That model affliction. It brings you so much pain. It's your ball and chain. Conflating curvature with elevation change has got your local distance just out of range. That old biggie is gonna dictate everything that you do. And everybody knows that you got the model affliction blue. It's your decision defending the model position. You just don't know the geometric proposition. That old ball, it'll always be illogical to you. That's why perpendicularity is a puzzle to you. Model affliction. It's your addiction. Model affliction. It brings you so much pain. It's your ball and chain.
World famous Buster.
Hey, you got hey, Bev, can you just hold off on me for a little bit? really tied up at the moment. I can only listen for a bit. Thanks.
Sorry, Beth. Sorry, Beth, to interrupt. There is no sound on the on YouTube.
Is that good? Is that better? Hello, and we are live. Is that better? Yeah, I think everybody. I said that my thing wasn't working. Sound is good now. Thank you very much. Right, yeah, we're back. We are live, everyone. Welcome, Model Affliction Monday. There's a few things we'll go over. I've been informed by somebody of some breaking news that happened today. But I mean, we'll go over that in a bit. Also, we've got a few things about stuff in the arena that we have going on at the minute. There seems to be a bit of a war, a battle going on for the king of debates. I'm guessing king of rebuttals, something. And also we've got a little strange thing going on with the Globe Logic guy, and we may brush upon a couple of things with Blue Marble Science, Frantic Bunny Ears, and a debate that he wants to do, which I think is centralized around some sort of conversation that I would call it ECV, that people don't seem to want to address. Yet it is the driving force about what everybody talks about in the background. Oh, it likes to be hidden. Yeah, alphabet war. That'll probably be about right. Yes. So, where do we want to start? I guess I would like to start with sort of the confusion that gets thrown in to this arena purposely to try and distract people from what I call the main issue. And the main issue will be whatever the conversation is about, the heart of the matter, where you should be trying to concentrate your efforts. But there seems to be people that want to divert the conversation around the main issue, and they like to play about in the sidelines. Now we have, if you've been listening to us, we do a lot of stuff on basic trivium logic, geometry, and how to link the things together with reality, main thing. But that is what logic does. Logic likes to link reality and the thought process together to help you come to an understanding or gain knowledge, what we call the science, the gaining knowledge within a certain field. Now, however you do that, that's what we call science. Now, there are different interpretations, and this science has also been obfuscated around so people can divert their gaze, right, from where they're meant to be looking at. If you can get distracted, keep away from that, then it's the way it goes.
Can I add to that real quick there, Beth?
Go on.
I just want to add to that. There's a huge difference in the application of the word science in your context where we're just gaining knowledge, and then in the context of other places or people that may say scientific method as a way of proving things. Those are two different kind of uses of the word science.
Yeah, I'd say that's a
Could be
discussion that
isolated
needs
from-
to be had, around that. But yeah,
Thank you.
without me saying it, yeah, I think you you said it right there. Right,
But
so go on.
it also concerns mathematical proofs, because if science is about proving, then mathematics is science, and this is position which Globers and I think some of flat earthers don't hold, sadly. But proofs are in mathematics and in physics also. So to clarify.
Yeah, and what has been construed as the scientific method is really just a logical process that you formulate your words in the correct way, but you do that within a science to come to a conclusion about a thing. Whether you're poking it or prodding it or burning it or melting it or whatever, it doesn't really matter. There is something there, and you do something to it, and you come to a conclusion at the end. Some people call that the scientific method. Well, it's the method of gaining knowledge about the thing. Therefore, the science is that process of ending up at a more understanding or a better knowledge of the thing that you're talking about. I wouldn't say there is a different category of science. Science is the knowledge that you gain.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Because some people say that only in physics we have science. And I disagree, because in physics you need to have some phenomenon and experiment upon this phenomenon. Yes, that's right. This is part of your inferring, because you have to check your hypothesis by means of experiment. That's correct. But it doesn't mean that your inferring is not science. Your experiment only supports your inferring. That's what it is for, this experiment. Some people equivocate experiment and process of proving. This is not the same. Experiment is only part of proof. And in physics, of course, because in mathematics, generally, and in geometry, you don't need really experiment. So that's why this is my disagreement to some people when they say that only in physics we have scientific method and experiment, and this is science only there. I disagree with that.
Right, I've got this thing with Betty. I think it'll be easier if we go over the comments and replies. Because as far as I'm concerned, when we talk to people, there are obviously different grades of let's call them globe earthers, right? That these globe earthers have different purposes for whatever it is they're in this arena for. Now, I've often wondered why certain people hang around, what they're doing, what their purpose is. And this with Betty is one of the strangest things that we get. Let me just move this over. There we go. Right. So, can you guys see that in?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what we have here is Betty. Now, Betty came to us as a globe logician. He came and talked to us, and then what he did was he talked to us for a bit. He took the information that he gained from us here and went over to Bob the liar guys, formerly Bob the science guy. He's not around much anymore. I don't know if anybody's ever seen Bob. Is he all right? I hope he's okay. But he was around for a bit. He used to copyright strike me videos whenever we talked about him. So hopefully he won't copyright strike us for this one. But yeah, Betty went over to Bob the science guys to make some videos about flat earth logic, he called it. But we weren't flat earth, and we specifically told him, don't take this over there and pretend it's flat earth, because it's not. What we do here is about reality, forming arguments from reality and forming proofs to prove what we say. That's all we've ever done. But some people get upset at us that they want it to be flat earth, but it's not. They're definitely not flat earth. We're talking about things in reality. Now, there's no need for us to say the earth's flat, because it's not. Some of the proofs that we go over, we will use to show and prove that the earth is not flat. Now, you may have a different understanding of the words, like science has a different meaning within science and normal science. There's two different meanings of it, obviously. We have a meaning where it's gained knowledge, and other people have a process. And then other people, again, have an idea that there are no proofs within science, which I find utterly preposterous. It's stupid that for anybody to think that is completely going against. That is a complete contradiction to what science actually means. If you say that science has no proof, then that's a contradiction in terms, because the very word means the acquisition of knowledge. And if you don't have proof, then you can't gain any knowledge from it. It's a ridiculous statement to make. And so Betty came to us as a trained professional logician, supposedly wrote books, been a teacher. So we were hoping that this would be good, because at least then we can have a conversation with people about these sort of things. Now, what you'll find is Betty's he might have studied logic, but he's a dialetheist. A complete paraconsistent logic he might have studied. Doesn't appear that he's actually studied the logical process for the acquisition of knowledge to find a proof the truth gaining logic of actual Aristotelian logic, old school, back into antiquity, the oldest logic there could be, the only logic there is, to be honest. So Beddy, in what we're doing here, he's starting from last week's Trivium. If anybody wants to go and have a look at this stuff, this is comments on last week's Trivium day, Wednesday. Now, what Beddy does in this is he's measuring an angle. This is all about an angle, measured from a light in the sky to somewhere else. So everybody, you can imagine this. You have a light in the sky, you have you with an angle measuring device, and then you have the horizon. So the horizon, the angle is measured from the horizon to the light in the sky. That's it. One angle. And that's what Beddy's saying, right? You can measure that angle. Everybody, anyone can measure that angle with whatever device you want. And all you will ever have is one angle. So Beddy starts it off with just pointing out, measuring an angle from different positions. It goes into a lot. Now, he says, and this is what this is all about. Beddy says, as a point in favour of these presentations, they highlight the conceptual difficulties underlying our assumptions about measurement, an angle, right? Take the question of what an angle is. This is Beddy, right? So we're questioning ourselves about what an angle is. It's the inclination of two straight lines to one another. So he says we measure the angle between two celestial bodies, e.g. So he's just talking about an angle between two lights in the sky. What we are actually doing is measuring the difference in angle between two light rays arriving at our measuring object, measuring instrument. He says nothing more than that. So he says we then we assume that the light rays traveling from those objects are traveling in perfectly straight lines. But you're just measuring from a point to a point, the angle. And then he says, allowing us to construct a triangle. So he's got a measuring device and two lights in the sky. Beddy is under the misconception that he can make a triangle out of that. Now, a lot of people might be thinking the same. You can. Got 3 points. And then he says, as far as I can see, no one on the globe side has mentioned this assumption. I may be wrong. There is a lot of ink spilled over these questions. So he's never, well, he's saying, as far as I can see, no one on the globe side has mentioned this assumption. The assumption that the light is coming in straight lines, or the assumption that you can measure an angle between two points in the sky. It's a bit hard to tell, but this is what Beddy does. He confuses people. He slipped in a bit about a triangle, allowing us to construct a triangle. You cannot construct a triangle because you do not know the length of any of the sides of the triangle.
Yes, that's right. So it would be the non-sequitur because, yes, you can measure angle with your device. This is very easy.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can do that. Just from point to point on the sky, you just move your, for example, whatever theodolite with the crosshairs, and you are moving from one to one, and you are rotating your theodolite or other device, and you have angle on your reading or table or whatever, protractor. So yes, you can measure angle. That's it, and nothing more.
That's it. Everybody agrees you can measure an angle, but what I'm pointing out is, like I say here, move this up. There's no triangle, Betty, I say. All you have is an angle, and everyone knows you can do fuck all with an angle, or everybody should know that, right? It's a basic part of geometry. A triangle has 3 angles and 3 sides. An angle is just one of those sides. There's no length to any of the sides of the triangle. There's just an angle, and you can do all with that one angle. You need the full triangle to be able to do anything with, usually a right angled triangle, in order to perform trigonometry. That's what you need. It's a necessity for you to be able to do that. There's only one shape that you can use to predict anything, and that is a triangle. But in order for you to do that, you need a few basic things. For step 1, you need a right-angled triangle, or the ability to make a right-angled triangle out of the triangle. And that requires you knowing that one of the angles is a right angle, or the ability for you to make a right angle. You then need the length of one of the sides and an angle. You can then start to perform trigonometry, which is the ability of predicting the other sides and angles of a right angle triangle.
There are some difficulties here, because if you have this angle with these lines, you can't, theoretically, you can create, you can divide this angle into 2 and make this isosceles triangle as 2 right angle triangles, but still you don't have this baseline of isosceles triangle, because you don't know how far you can put this baseline.
Yeah, you've got no length of any of the sides when
yes.
dealing with this angle measurement. If all you have is an angle, then it is impossible to form the triangle for you to be able to predict anything from that triangle. You don't have the triangle. That's a simple thing. You've got one angle and that's it. A wangle.
So you cannot predict proportions between sides in this so-called triangle. So this is useless. Your angle is useless then.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of people that have imagined that you can do a lot more with it. But I mean, so what Betty does, after me saying there's no triangle, Betty, what Betty says is, so light doesn't exist? It's a non sequitur. This guy is meant to be a logician, right? I've just pointed out that he has no triangle. If he's measuring an angle, there is no triangle there. And what Betty says is, so light doesn't exist?
Yes, this is nonsensical question, because you were talking about one instance when you cannot create a triangle, and it has nothing to do with light. So, because generally we are creating triangles by drawing them on the paper. So it has not really nothing to do with light.
So here's what I do. I try and redirect him back to the issue. I say, again, I'll give you his full quote just to let you know how these guys obfuscate. I mean, it's only in text. He doesn't have the nerve to do this in face-to-face to talking. He can only do it in text. He says, I'm sure that most people believe that light exists. If you don't think so, you should provide evidence that it doesn't. Nobody mentioned light. He's just talking about measuring an angle between two lights in the sky.
He exposes his sophistry because
Yes.
he is in this question. This is like a rhetorical question, and his answer is that you think that light does not exist, and then he is saying what he's saying in next sentence. So he's putting some words or meaning into your mouth, and then he is elaborating on that. So this is one of the way how sophists operate.
Yeah, and Beddy, don't forget, this is the globe logician. This is the best the globe has to offer as far as logic. And he's already showing within this simple conversation, he's sophistry. He's complete non-sequitur. But, I mean, it gets better, right? Because I, once again, redirect him. There's no triangle that can be formed when you measure an angle. Don't let your ECV, existential cognitive veiling, distract you from the real issue here, right? So I'm pointing out to him that I'm talking about triangles and he's completely avoiding it. He's veiling it. His mind, or whether that is. So I try and redirect him back to the same thing again. And Beddy says, entirely wrong. Bodies A and B. So, right, take yourself, imagine it now. Beddy's not talking about the horizon. He's talking about two lights in the sky. And he's calling them bodies. Sophist, again. He's attaching a body to a light in the sky. It's just a light in the sky. He's already said that. It's just a light in the sky. And you're measuring an angle between the two. So he says, entirely wrong. Bodies A and B. Observer position O. Straight lines, O to A, O to B. And then he says A to B. So he is actually, he's doing the ranty ruhith opposite side. He's placing a side in the triangle opposite the angle that he's measuring.
No, this is imaginative triangle. You can do that. Yes, yeah. You can do. I can do that. I can think that there is a line between me and star, and there is another line between me and another star, and there is a line between these two stars.
Yep.
And in my head, I have triangle, imaginometry.
And he says, 3 straight lines, right? Are you saying that straight lines don't exist? So he's swapped now into his other one. Are you saying such and such doesn't exist? No. All I'm saying is the measuring of one angle does not form a triangle. So Beddy's saying now that I don't think straight lines exist, when I obviously do. We have proofs of it.
Yes, this is deliberately jumping into your conclusion. Mm-hmm. He thinks that you conclude that, or you should conclude that straight lines don't exist. So this is another example that he is putting words into your mouth, and then he is creating this proof for your statement, because he is treating his words as yours. So this is perfect example of sophistry.
So he says, straight line. Are you saying that straight lines don't exist and light doesn't exist? This gets weirder and weirder. Well, for me, yeah, it does. Like, Beddy has just shown his sophisticated ways of arguing. And I don't know who's going to go along with this, who he thinks he's imagining he's fooling. Because
Yes,
I obviously didn't say that, and I think everybody can see that I didn't say that. He's making it up.
I think this is like kind of playing chess with himself. But you know, if you want to win with white and you want black to lose, then you are moving blacks as you want. And he is treating you as these blacks. So he is playing chess with himself, but he is thinking that he is playing with you. So sorry.
Yeah.
I don't.
It's a straw man, right? He's setting up something that he can
absolutely.
Yeah, to make it an easy one, right? What a straw man is, in case you don't know. They make a straw man so that they can burn it down. Straw mans burn very easily, and it's not the actual argument. So a straw man argument is an argument that's so weak it's easily defeated. So what Beddy's doing here is he's making this really weak argument that I'm saying something that I'm obviously not, with the aid to make it look ridiculous, and then he can pretend that's the argument that I'm coming across with, when it's obviously not. He's frightened of actually addressing the actual issue here, is that he can't get a triangle. But it shows again, right? I say to Beddy, do you imagine that you can place the other two angles by just measuring one? Have you been listening to Ruhif and his paralogisms about globe geometry? Because in my studies in this arena, Ruhif has been the guy that has come forward to give people these paralogisms. This idea that you can form a triangle with one angle has been cleverly designed within this arena. It was shown most prevalently with Ranti putting a ruler on a picture. And what that is so you can imagine this other side of the triangle. Because if you can imagine that side, then you can imagine the two lines coming from where you are towards that one. And therefore, the triangle is easier to form in your mind. These people have been laying down these things for quite a while. So you can imagine that this triangle can be formed. It can't be. There is just one angle. And it was Ruhif that brought that around. Ruhif is the conversations that we've had mainly about that. And there's a few videos that we have.
By the way, in your imagination, you can create that triangle. That would be isosceles triangle, but your assumption is wrong, or rather, better to say baseless, because if you create isosceles triangle, you assume that the distance to both stars is equal, and you never know that. So it means that your triangle is just imaginometry. You cannot prove that you created real distances to these stars. So for me, it would be pointless. And even for globers, because they assume that these stars are at different distances.
Mm-hmm.
So it would not create isosceles triangles for sure. So I don't know why they are doing that.
Yeah,
because
you literally can't do the geometry involved with it. All you've got is one angle. It's so easy to when you know the basics of geometry, then if you have only one angle, you cannot make a triangle. It's impossible. Two straight lines cannot enclose a space is a axiom from Euclidean geometry. And that's all you have. Is 2 points really, and you've measured an angle. Right, so Betty, after me saying, like, do you imagine that you can place the other two angles by just measuring one? Have you been listening to Ruhif? So he says, so you meant to say that we cannot determine the other two angles of a triangle by just measuring one of the angles. No, it's pretty simple. The statement is you can do fuck all with an angle. That's what I meant to say, and that's what I will say all the time. We're making this geometry simple for the people, for everybody to understand. And I think everybody can understand that you can do fuck all with an angle. It's not a triangle. There's no geometry to be done with an angle. It's just an angle. Doesn't help in any way as far as what these guys are going to then try and go to within their method, that they've got the next step. If the next step is formed upon a really, really bad start of imagining that you can have a triangle when you cannot, this is pretty painful for a lot of people, I would imagine. And it should have been a conversation that we've had, or at least we have. We've had this conversation many times. I can remember a conversation with a couple of guys. Maybe Brian's Logic came round when we first were talking and we first heard about the sextant. That was one of the things that we pointed out, that you can do fuck all with an angle. You can measure it. That's it. You can measure the angle. You've got no triangle.
You can make any triangle you want, but you cannot say anything about the rest of the angles and sides.
Yeah.
It's just
I got a magic book though.
It still doesn't matter. It doesn't help. It doesn't help. The magic book won't help you.
Angle to my magic book. No.
No. No, you've just got, you just measure an angle. You've got, that's it. No magic books can help you. Geometrically.
But they have a magic book.
But that still cannot help you. You've only measured an angle. Like, even if you go back to first principles of this thing, the only thing anybody could ever have done is measure an angle. That's it. You've got nothing else. You've got an angle here, and you've got an angle over there, and you've got an angle over there. That's it. From that, there are no triangles to be formed. Just angles. So Betty says, like, once he's tried to reword what I said, he's then agreeing. He's saying correct. Yeah. He says correct, but that is not what you said. You said that the triangle cannot be formed when you meant to say that the triangle cannot be measured. You can't form the triangle. I'll say it straight. In order to form the triangle, you need to measure it. You need to make and establish all 3 points. Then you can form the triangle.
To form triangle, you have to know 3 locations of three vertices. Because even if you are drawing on the paper, you have to have on the paper, you have to have these locations to join these points with straight lines. And you have only one location, as observer. So where to join these lines in this space? It's you cannot form or you cannot draw triangle. Impossible.
Right. So he then says, thanks for clearing that up, which he hasn't cleared anything up. I think he's sorting that in his own mind. He can reformulate what I've said, then imagine that he's corrected me, and then he's agreed with me. So he's done all three things there. He's reformulated it into whatever he has some crazy idea in his own head. And then he's imagined that he's corrected me. But then he says, but even an angle tells us quite a lot. I don't know, just an angle, right? Innit? It's just an angle. That's the whole point of me saying this. All you have is an angle. It can't tell you a lot. So Betty says, if I can determine the angle between the sun and the horizon, if he can determine it, right, then I can determine the time when that angle is greatest. Do you agree? He's bringing time element into a geometric.
I just want to throw something in real quick. He needs a horizontal baseline to do that.
No, he doesn't. He's just saying he needs an angle. He can determine an angle between the horizon and the sun. All you need is your position, the horizon, and the sun. And you just measure the angle between those two positions, the horizon and the sun. You could be stood on a mountain and measure the angle between the horizon and the sun. You could be up in an aeroplane and measure an angle between the horizon and the sun. It's just two positions. It's just measuring an angle. At the end of it, all you have is an angle.
Yes. So yes, the sun will move, so you will have greater. Yes, the same angle of elevation would be greater. Yes, and at the sunset would be smaller.
Yeah, you can tell which is the biggest angle that you could measure and the smallest angle you could measure. I mean, like, if you're measuring from the horizon to the sun, like, which part of the horizon? Like, at sunrise, could you measure from the horizon on the other side and measure like an angle of 179 degrees? I'd say, yeah, you can. You can measure from the horizon to I mean, that's a big angle. That's when the angle would be the greatest, I would say.
Yes.
But I don't think that's what Beddy's talking about. Beddy's not making himself clear in his statements, but you just measure an angle. I mean, anyone knows you can measure an angle. Now, that's what Beddy's trying to talk about, but Beddy's trying to be a sophist. He's trying to portray a different idea into people's minds. You probably thought of what Beddy was talking about was the big light in the sky high up, but you could measure an angle from one side, because if that's all you're doing from the horizon to the light in the sky, you could measure all sorts of different angles. He's not being specific enough. So I of course, Beddy, I definitely can agree that you can measure an angle. So then, this is 2 days ago. This has been going on for quite a while, this conversation with Beddy. And I say, so you have an angle and nothing else. It's strange that a proofless logician should be attempting to use geometry that he seems ignorant of to be helping him establish his paralogisms. But I guess you are the globe logician. So I'm just pointing out to Betty, he's trying this sophistry, and it's not working. At least not with me, because I have an understanding of geometry, and I can understand that he isn't being specific. He's just trying to throw ideas out there, mainly for the people that are listening to him. So if you're out there and you are listening to Betty, watch out, because he's not being very clear. Get him to explain his case a little bit more. Put it across as a logical argument, Betty, seeing as you are a logician. The proofless globe logician. So he says, do you agree that if we know the angle of the sun against the horizon at any time, then we know the time at which the angle is the greatest? Why do you guys have such a problem answering a simple question? Well, this is where Betty's mind's going a bit fried. I'll read it out again. Right, this is what Betty calls this a simple question. He says, do you agree that if we know the angle of the sun against horizon at any time, do you agree that if we know the angle of the sun against horizon at any time, then we know the time at which the angle is greatest? Why do you guys have such a problem answering a simple question? Is that a simple question, really? Do you agree that if we know the angle of the sun against horizon at any time?
This is kind of a circular question, because we know the angle of the sun against horizon at any time, at will. We can do that. We can measure this angle. But then we know the time, but this is not
angle's
because
the
we
greatest.
are measuring. We just can measure when the sun is in the highest position, and we call that time noon. So this is like reverse process of thinking, because we know that this is noon because the sun is at highest position. So our let's say measuring of time is from a measuring position of the sun. So it is that way. So not in reverse. He's reversing the. He's saying that we know how he. Then we know at the time. No, we know when the angle is greatest, and then it means that we know the time. And he's putting in reverse way this question.
Yeah,
I can. So he's inversing cause and effect in this question, because we don't know time from greatest angle, but we know that the greatest angle means that time. So this is completely reverse. I would say that he reversed causation and implication. So I don't know. I have to think about that, but this is something weird with his process of thinking. It's like backward here.
Yes. So he says, have you ever noticed the fact that the sun rises every morning, rises to a certain height in the sky, then sinks down again? Other people have. Yes, Buddy, we have. Obviously. But this is what these guys do. They try and pretend that you're stupid. because he's completely missed the point. So I have to point out to him again. I say, I agree that you can do fuck all with an angle, as you cannot form a triangle with just one angle. Trying to keep him on point. He's trying to obfuscate it again. So Betty then says, so you don't agree that the sun rises every morning, rises to a certain height in the sky, then sinks down again. Again, non sequitur, just sophistry, pure sophistry.
Yes, he's. This would be a third straw man here.
Yeah.
So first was light. You denied, supposedly you denied light. Then you denied straight lines, and now you are denying sunrises and sunsets.
Yeah.
So this is his construction.
Straw man again.
Logical construction.
Yeah, this is the proofless globe logician, the best the globe side has got. Betty making a third straw man within, I don't know, how 6 comments, 8 comments. Terrible. He says, fair enough, but there are few people who would agree with you, even in your own small circle. Well, I've never made that claim. I've never said that. So nobody would agree with me not saying that, because I haven't said it. It's a straw man that you've made up, Betty, because you can't address the fact that you can do fuck all with an angle. So simple. So now he gets a bit of help from his friend Whatever. Now Whatever's been around, spun a water level for us on a table. He constructed a marvelous contraption. So try thinking. He replies to me. He says, do you imagine that you can place the other 2 angles by just measuring one? This is Whatever, right? That's my question to Betty. And Whatever comes in and says, yes, for a right angled equilateral or isosceles triangle, he thinks you can actually do that. Because he's been led by a load of other sophists, I would say parasophists, people that imagine that they can do something because the globe dictates that they should be able to. And when in actual fact they can't. They don't know the fundamentals, the basics, and Whatever here is, this is pure paralogism, passing them on to everybody else. Nobody thinks you can actually do this, but Whatever does. He's putting a yes there. So if anybody wants help from any of this, Whatever, the globe defender, he's the guy to ask about this. Thinks you can measure an angle and then form a triangle from one angle.
But he is wrong, because he said for a right equilateral or isosceles triangle.
Yeah.
He is three times wrong, because for all of them you need to have locations of these points, and you cannot obtain locations. So you don't know, if you are even in your imagination, you are creating this triangle, you don't know which of these triangles you created. You don't know if it is right angled equilateral or isosceles triangle or other. You don't know.
Yeah.
So you don't know angles between this, the rest of the angles. You don't know what it is.
So this is where Whatever shows his model affliction, it being model affliction Monday. He says, if it's an angle from the horizontal, your favourite word, and there you go, Rob, Whatever's bringing the horizontal in for you. I said before, you're just measuring an angle, like the horizontal's got nothing to do with it. Whatever has fallen into the trap into thinking that a horizontal has got something to do with it, and the inclusion of a horizontal can help you form this triangle. Bullshit. It's bullshit, but he's been led into this because that's the general narrative of this whole thing in this arena. It's been led. People have been led to believe you can actually do this, and not from the globe side either. Conversations that have never been had. I've been told that I'd end up killing everybody, slaughtering people. You murder them. By crazy people shouting that at me for mentioning that you cannot form a triangle with just one angle. So he says if it's from an angle from the horizontal, then it's a right angle triangle. It's a right triangle. So measured angle plus 90 minus 180 equals the third angle. Doesn't matter how far the object, like a star, is from the observer, since the horizontal extends to infinity. He still can't see what he's attempting to do it. But hey, so he's fallen into the trap. Who laid the trap for him? For him to fall into that particular trap, who has laid that trap for him? Or has somebody passed on a paralogism that he's just picked up within an argument to keep continuing this argument along? I'd say this to other people as well. You can't do it. He says, so then whatever then comes back to reply to Betty. Not sure what prompted this thread, but I just gave Bev one example of placing the other two angles by measuring one. So whatever is now informing Betty that he thinks it's possible for you to actually do this, form the triangle from measuring one angle. Where do you think he's got that from? I'd say he's got it from a circular argument that's been handed out. Maybe somebody even prompted it as the number one flat earth proof. That might be somebody that did that. Who knows? That might be where whatever's pulled this idea that he can actually form the triangle from it. Maybe somebody has been telling little porky lies to people. Maybe they didn't know it was lies. Maybe it's just a paralogism that they've been passing on. Who knows? But whatever thinks he's done it. And then Betty has to now come back. He says, I think he is confusing two questions, not whatever. I think you're wrong. He cannot actually do that because Betty, don't forget, Betty's just agreed that you can't form the triangle. Now he's agreeing. Betty, whatever's told him he's wrong. But hey, this is how the globe obfuscation team works. They just confuse each other. So he says, I think he's confusing two questions. One, whether we can determine the angles of a triangle from just knowing one angle. And then listen, he says, no, we can't. No, we can't. So that's Betty directly going against whatever's just told him he can do. There's so much confusion going on about this sort of thing. So they're contradicting each other, whatever and Betty. And then he says, but he expresses the question in an odd way, asking if a triangle is formed. So he's playing on the terms of what formed means now. He's trying to confuse whatever in the understanding of the term formed. Well, everybody knows what it is. A triangle. It's either a triangle or not a triangle. It's just an angle. There's a difference between a triangle and an angle, which I think everybody can understand. And the difference between an angle and a triangle is the forming of the triangle, the placing of the other points to make the triangle. It's very fucking simple. But
Yes, and
this is
he's
globe
contradicting.
sophistry.
He's contradicting himself, because if he said in this sentence, no, we can't, it means that we cannot know these angles. He admitted that. And therefore, we cannot form triangle. But he is saying that we can. So he's contradicting. If we don't know angles, we cannot form.
He says that's
Triangle, sorry.
incoherent.
Yes, he's contradicting in these two sentences. He is contradicting himself.
Yeah, but then he's trying to pass it off as though I'm the one that's being incoherent, whereas he's just contradicting himself and then adding on that I'm the one being incoherent. I'm being very simple. I've stated it 3 times in this one thread. You can do fuck all with an angle. Very simple. That's not incoherent. It's a very simple statement.
And by the way, one notion, asking if triangle is formed. Form in logic, in Aristotelian logic, normal, it means creating. So if he said that something is formed, it means in logic that something is created, brought to existence, because everything in logic which is existent has its own form. So while it is formed, it means that it is existent. So you can equivocate word to form and to create. So that's to clarify why he is in contradiction, because he cannot create triangle, and now he says that we can form. No, we cannot form, because form in this case means to create triangle. We cannot create triangle.
Yeah, he's but I mean, after doing that, after saying that about the formed and then saying it's incoherent, he says his other question is too whether we can get any useful information from knowing only one angle. It's not a question, like I say, it's a statement. So he says he thinks not. My statement is you cannot form a triangle. You can do fuck all with one angle, meaning that you need in geometry for you to work out anything, for you to have any predictive power within geometry mathematics. It's the same. There are certain minimal things that you need in order for you to come out with that conclusion. If you don't have these basics, then you cannot derive an answer that you can be sure of. You're just making stuff up, which is obviously what the globe guys are good at doing. And this shows that this is exactly how they work. He says, whether we can get any useful information from knowing only one angle. He thinks not. My reply is that by knowing the point in time that the sun reaches the greatest altitude, we can learn an awful lot. Granted, we need to know 2 things, so not just the angle. Right now he's adding in extra things to try and get something else that isn't geometry, right? There's no time element in geometry. That's not how it works. The time element with geometry would end up being the music and geometry, which we call astronomy. Very simple. Granted, he said we need to know 2 things, namely the greatest altitude and the time it occurred. So he is technically correct. That's Beddy. I'll put that there, look. So he is technically correct. This is Beddy talking to whatever. So he said, we can't form the triangle, and Bev, so he is technically correct. That's me in my statement, the simple statement. However, he says, he tends to use the can do fuck all with an angle argument as destructive of the possibility of celestial navigation, which it is not. No, the statement is a geometric statement. You can do fuck all with an angle, just the one, which is what they're doing. They're measuring an angle of that particular triangle, and they've just got one angle. They haven't got the other two. They do not have a triangle in order to place that one angle in the corner of. So whatever comes back after just being told by Beddy that no, he's wrong. You shouldn't have said that. That's right, isn't it, Beddy? You just told whatever that he can't do what he thinks he can. Now, whatever has learned that from someone, Beddy. That's the part you should be addressing. That's the part that we have been addressing. People have been told falsehoods about things, and nobody corrects them apart from us. But people tell us that we don't know what we're talking about, but we do, because we know enough to be able to correct people. You've told whatever that I'm correct in this, so it seems like you do actually agree with us, right? So he says, whatever says, I heard Bev and Co say fuck all with an angle and never understood the argument. It's not an argument, it's just a statement, a fact. You can prove us wrong if you want. Try anyway, at least. Just get an angle and then do something with it, like, you know, geometrically. A single angle to the North Star is all the information that's needed to determine one's latitude.
That's correct, but so what? Yes, we measure this angle.
Like time, isn't it?
And then if we if I can see this North Star at 45 degree, it means that I am at 45 degree latitude.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, great.
That's
great.
genius, isn't it? That's the same as the time one. I think it's noon. How do you know? Because the sun's up there. It's the highest. Oh, right. The biggest angle.
Oh, what?
Yeah. Well done. Well, it must be noon then. Yeah, that's what we can tell. But I mean, that's the same thing. It doesn't make any difference, right? That's how, if anybody doesn't know, that's how latitude was derived. By measuring an angle to a light in the sky from your position. That's what it means. So you can't derive something that's just established like that. It just is. So, Beddy says, whatever. Oh, a very good point. I was thinking of sun sights where you need a time. With parallax, you just need the angle. You didn't know about that, Beddy. I'm surprised. But he says, but note, this gives you latitude only. For longitude, you need the timing of the noon sight. Hence the longitude board, Harrison's clock, etc., etc. We're just talking about the geometry of the angle, measuring an angle and being able to do fuck all with it. That's what we're talking about mainly in here. And then I say to them, I call that a non-sequitur. You're mentioning about latitude and all of that, because we are talking about triangles. Beddy says, exactly what is a non-sequitur? Beddy, the proofless contradictory globe logician, is asking me what a non sequitur is. I'll put it here, look. Exactly what is a non sequitur? It's something that doesn't follow, Betty.
Yes, this is translation,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah, it does not follow. Surely you should know that as being a proofless globe logician. You should know what a non sequitur is. It's part of your sophisticated techniques of trying to obfuscate from the actual issue. So he says, I claim that by measuring the altitude of Polaris at any point north of the equator, we can find our latitude. Well,
Yes.
I said you can do fuck all with an angle.
But he was talking about the stars or the sun, which are moving. Polaris doesn't move. So you have fixed reference point.
Uh-huh.
But with moving stars, this is another story. That's why he's bringing time. But you don't need time in regard to Polaris because it is fixed. It's not moving anywhere. So, and that's why you can measure this latitude. And that's all. Nothing else.
Right, so I say I told you that geometrically you can't do anything with an angle, and yet you still continue to say you can draw conclusions about non-existent lines. I can understand your confusion with you being a diletheist and all. To which Betty says, but you can find your angle to Polaris, right? Well, I would state yet again is what you do is you measure an angle and then you say, here's the angle. That's not doing anything geometric. That's you stating, here's an angle I've measured. Whether you call it a latitude or whatever, that's up to you. What exactly is it you're doing? Well, you're just labeling something, your position at the angle that you've just measured. It's not actually doing anything. Just calling out the angle that you've measured to a light in the sky, a reference angle to the light in the sky. Brilliant.
You can't do that on Earth, something with that, because if you measure, for example, 45 degree to Polaris, and then, as they say, you go backward, and after passing like 60 nautical miles, on the ground, you are the star is 1 degree lower. That's it. So that's how they are measuring distance on the ground.
The angle is 1 degree different.
Yes.
Yeah. That's all that happens. Is there is a change of 1 degree. As you move horizontally.
Yes, and you have to go, of course, backward on this latitude line, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certain direction. So Betty says, but you can find an angle to Polaris, therefore there is something you can do with an angle, namely find your angle to Polaris. But you say I can't do anything with an angle. And this is the part here where this is the globe logician. He says, logic proves you false. So how is measuring an angle to a light in the sky and having 1 angle any different than measuring an angle to a particular light in the sky and having one angle? How are they different in any way? You still just have an angle. You can call them whatever you want.
And he's equivocating this polaris because this is not the same case as he stated at the beginning. He started with two just stars in the
two
sky,
lights in the sky,
not polaris,
and not horizon.
Yes, so he completely changed topic, and he is trying to infer something about these 2 points on the sky using polaris. So complete nonsense, complete non sequitur, great non sequitur.
Yes. But don't forget, this is Bedi, the globe logician. I'd say he is a globe sophist, and he's paralogizing non-arguments into the globe mentality, because people will be using these as they would imagine that they are legitimate arguments dealing with the lights in the sky and measuring angles. But he says logic proves you false. Logic? What logic? You're still just measuring an angle. You've just changed the different lights in the sky to the horizon for your measurement of an angle. But it's still just a measurement of an angle. You want to talk about how a measurement of an angle will be different somehow. I don't know. Geometrically, it's exactly the same. Doesn't change anything about the statement. You can do fuck all with an angle. If you say, well, I can get a latitude, and that just shows you how you measure an angle to a particular light in the sky. But the measuring of the angle, if you talk about that, like the horizon and the horizontal that they're talking about, well, you can work the rest of the geometry out from there. Stick with the simple statement. And it says it also proves me a diletheist somehow.
Yeah, so this is projection. Just this logic proves you false. He didn't prove anything. He put his words in your mouth, and these are proofs for him. And of course, he didn't prove that you are diletheist, because how? He should show that on the example, but nothing. No, this is just pure sophistry.
Look at this. Can you guys see that? I've just put that on screen there. Bedi says, don't know why he says this sort of thing. I'm hoping he's been led into it by the great stolen concept fallacy, whether you think you're doing a study or whatever. But Bedi says, and I'll quote this so everybody, it's live. Bedi quotes the proofless globe logician, states, geometry, namely the fifth postulate, the one that we call the triangle axiom, tells us that verticals are not parallel. Bedi, genius. That's the perpendicular relationship between horizontal and vertical. I'm taking it. That's what the 90. Genius. Well done, Bedi. Thank you very much. Supporting Blue Marble Science and the upcoming great stolen concept globe proof. The sophisticated globe proof that's going to involve the triangle axiom, namely the one that they've called the fifth postulate. even though they got rid of a load of other axioms. Thank you very much, Betty. I'm glad you're glad you're here.
I can see this dog. This dog should be called missing the point argument.
Right, so Betty thinks logic proves me false. So I'm pretty sure you can write it up in a logical statement, Betty, to help your buddies out. How the statement you can do fuck all with an angle can be proved wrong by you measuring an angle. It's genius. I feel another stolen concept. I think you're rolling with this sophistry. And I say, your ECV is obvious nowadays. Please try to address the non-triangle that you're attempting to use in your calculations first, please. And then this is... I would ask everybody to go over this particular next reply from Betty. Betty, if you would like to explain this as well, you know, to your fellow globe earthers and maybe some of the other people that are listening, people just who are just trying to work out what's going on. Because, I mean, this is crazy town, right? Me saying simple statements about you cannot... you can do fuck all. I like to stay positive. You can do fuck all with an angle, geometrically and otherwise. I mean, you can say, here's a 45-degree angle. What do you mean I can do nothing with it? I can write it down as a 45-degree angle. Talking about, like, the deriving something from it within a logical process. Just measuring an angle isn't a great part of any logic. It's just measuring an angle. It's not. No. So Betty says, but I am not using a triangle I don't have. I'm not using a triangle I don't have.
Oh, he said that he is using
A
triangle
yeah.
that he has,
Mm-hmm.
not this one that he hasn't got, but this one he has got.
Yeah, he's saying he is using a triangle, right?
Yes, but not this one that he hasn't got, but this one he has got. But we still don't know which of them he has got and which of them he hasn't got.
No, so he says,
which one?
I am not using a non-triangle in my calculation. Why do you think I am? I am not using a non-triangle in my calculation. Why do you think I am? And I state, you can't use a triangle that you don't have. Your diletheism's showing again. Face slap.
Okay, so this is double negation. So he is using a triangle in his calculation, because when he is responding in that way, it means that he is using triangle in his calculations.
Yeah. And so I say you can't use a triangle that you don't have. Your diletheism's showing again, right? Because he can't see that he's applying a double negative, which completely changes what he's actually saying. Well, it doesn't actually change what he's saying. It's just the mental process that you have to go through to work out what he is actually saying and again, it's a pure sophistry technique. Just throwing confusion in to make it awkward for people. Forget we're talking about whether you can form a triangle or not from one angle. Obviously, you can't. It's a simple statement. So he says, again, I'll state it again, right? I say, please try to address the non-triangle that you're attempting to use in your calculations first, please. So he replies, I'm not using a non-triangle. I am using a triangle in my calculation. Why do you think I am? And I says, you can't use a triangle you don't have. You've just got an angle. Your dilithium's showman again. And he says, but I am not using a triangle I don't have, as I said above. Why do you think I'm using a triangle I don't have? But he's just stated he thinks he is using a triangle with his double negative state. So confused.
Yes, so he is still insisting that he has this triangle. You said to him many times that he cannot have triangle, and he said that he has this impossible triangle. That's he stating. So what you said, it is impossible, and it is impossible. He said in response that he has got this impossible triangle.
Yeah.
So that's his response.
Yeah. In a proper sophisticated way, right? He's genuinely using sophistry to make people believe that he has this triangle that he doesn't actually have. Whether he's convinced himself he has or what, I don't know.
That's psychological matter, but still his last response was that he has this impossible triangle. So, sorry. So he's just a miracle man.
Yep. Betty is... Wow. I'll get that one as well, buddy. Let me get this back here, because I'm gonna have to. And one more. This one's the one that I think we're going to be talking about quite a lot, considering Betty is the proofless globe logician. Right, so okay, I'll go back to this and just finish this off before we get around to this other stuff. Right, he says he's not using a triangle that he doesn't have. As I said above, why do you think I'm using a triangle I don't have? So at this point, I stopped talking to Betty. I know at this point it's not worth talking to a sophist when he's in full-on globe mode. Literally meaningless talking to somebody who's using double negatives to convince themselves of their own sophistry. And then here comes whatever 33 minutes ago. He says, yet you still continue to say you can draw conclusions about non-existent lines. Which lines do you claim are non-existent? The triangle. The ones that are needed to continue the forming of the triangle above the measurement of the one angle. That's the non-existent part. You can't do that. That's why I say you can do fuck all with an angle. You can't point the other ones. So he says, which lines do you claim are non-existent? The line of sight to a star. No, because that's, you can go from point to point. A horizontal line of reference. No, that you can definitely establish a horizontal line of reference too, yes. The physical lines on the measuring device which provide the angle. No, well, they're definitely there. We can definitely see them too. The lines of latitude on your map. Well, on the map, would they be straight lines? I don't know. I live in the UK. We have a grid reference. And are latitude lines on that? I don't know. We just have grid reference lines with squares. That's how we have grid reference is. So I wouldn't know about that. I've never dealt with any of those coming from the UK. That's it. So yeah, the grid lines are definitely there on the map. They're drawn on there. Beddy would know that. He comes from the UK too. Right, so let's get back to Beddy. So Beddy's confused. Beddy is the globe logician. And as you know, we've been dealing with logic. So geometry is an extension of logic. If this globe logician can't understand that you can do fuck all with one angle, you're missing the other two angles. You've only got one. If his logical process breaks down at double negatives, and his misunderstanding of double negatives, which is the part of the communication, the laws of communication, the law of double negativity, law of double negatives. And that always applies within logic. So Beddy should know this. And this is what they've got to push forward. Obviously, Beddy normally comes in on the Wednesday nights, the trivium and the logic. But for some reason, Model Affliction Monday is in the chat tonight, helping us out. So let's go back to this. Let's just go back. I'll just close that down for a bit. Very nice, thank you very much. Right, so Beddy. Beddy says, if you open a pair of scissors, can you tell how far away the head of the person is? I think not. I see. The hairdresser link is there. Ponzi hairdresser. I bet he'd be some fancy scissors if Beddy was holding his scissors. That's the only reason I put that one there. So I could say that.
So he's contradicting whatever he said earlier in that chat, because it suggests that you cannot know the distance to the head if you open scissors. Because so what the point of arguing so long about that?
That's the whole point of making the statement you can do fuck all with an angle. He just did it with a pair of scissors.
Yes. So that would be conclusion. What the point of? Maybe he was just exercising his sophistry. I don't know.
He's gone as well. See you later, Beddy. Thanks for popping in. You brought the hairdressing scissors up. So, but then this is the next one. It's a shame you had to go, Beddy, but...
Insults?
Welcome back.
Did I insult him? I don't.
No, it's the Ponzi hairdresser thing. He doesn't like the idea of the scissors and the hairdressing sort of aspect. He calls that an insult, even though he brings the scissors up and the hairdressing thing. He's just touchy. I think he might have had a bit of a scuffle. Maybe the last time he went for a haircut, he give him a bit of a mullet or something like that. Who knows? He might have had got a bad hairdo at some point.
Or maybe it was offensive that I spotted that this scissors, this comment on the scissors, he denied himself this whole discussion with you. is just in contradiction what he wrote here in this comment. So,
Well, if he's nothing, if he isn't a proofless, contradictory global logician, I mean, that's his job.
so why he feels offended?
Yeah, yeah. They do get offended pretty quickly. Snowflake mode. Switch it on. Yeah, Jeff, wrong time of the month. You know how Ponzi hairdressers get. They're a bit touchy, especially about the scissors. Right, the last one. I don't know whether you guys can see that. I'm gonna have to, let me just put a quick gif up there. Boom, so you can see this one. He says all horizontals are parallel. Like, he quotes it. I think that's one of my quotes, that all horizontals are parallel in little inverted commas. That's my quote. Well, not just my quote. I think it's a quote anyone can make, really. A provable quote, right? So he says, I'm afraid not. He's an afraid not. Betty is afraid not that all horizontals are parallel. It's a quote. He says, I doubt you could prove me wrong.
Yes,
That he's
okay,
an afraid not.
Yes, he's talking about feelings and not what he can prove or disprove. And doubt is not a proof. So he should prove that you cannot prove him wrong. But as long as he is a proofless logician, I think that he cannot prove anything.
Yeah, or you couldn't prove anything to him, especially about how afraid he is.
Yes.
His level of being afraid, I guess, he ran away, so he could be very afraid.
Yes, too offensive. So
yeah.
Too scary.
But I would say that I can actually prove that horizontals are parallel. I can prove it many different ways. As I'll show Blue Marble Science, because Blue Marble Science wants to debate me on level being horizontal. So obviously, horizontals being parallel will have to come into that proof too. You couldn't really do the proof. Go on. Yeah, go on.
That would bring me to what I want to talk about today. Because if level and horizontal are the same thing, okay, no, I gotta wait. I can't do it yet.
Okay. Yeah.
Can't do it yet. I need a little bit of time.
Yep, no problem. No problem. Well, I can keep going at this. Paige has said in the chat as well that she too can prove it. I bet many people can now. We've been doing this for quite a while, so it's pretty simple. Look at the next team member is in here.
Rumpus here.
Yeah, I think Rumpus, did Betty tell you how afraid he was? You've come to stick up for him or just do what he can. He says you can't prove horizontals are parallel. Any surveyor can show you they are not. Well, good. Just show us which surveyor. Rumpus, show us any one of the surveyors that can show us and prove to us that horizontals aren't parallel. I'm hoping Blue Marble's going to have a couple of them when we go and do the proof. I'll do the proof that level is horizontal, including horizontals being parallel. And you team up with Blue Marble Science and come up with your one to show us that we're wrong. Could you prove how afraid Betty is, Rumpus? Do you think you could do that? On a scale of 1 to 10, how afraid do you think you can prove Betty is? I don't know. So, yeah, well, that's one of the things that I wanted to go over tonight is the sophistry that is rife within this community. Now, what we've done here in this server, this group of people, forget about where we are. We are on Discord. Anybody can come in and have a chat, get involved in any of this at any point in time. Especially today, it's free for all. It's Model Affliction Monday. So if you've got any afflictions about any models, this is the place to come. Just type it in the chat if you want. Like some of the ones that are afraid of actually coming in and conversating. Just type it in the chat. We can address these things. Looks like Rumpus is in here. Rumpus is saying, look in any surveying book and it will show you that level is not horizontal, and that all observations by surveyors show that level is not horizontal. But the changes in elevation are shown in elevation profiles, and those show that level is horizontal. There's no difference. Level is perpendicular to plumb, as horizontal is perpendicular to vertical. The similarities are, well, identical, because they are identical. Plumb is vertical and level is horizontal. It's provable. Easy. Very easy. It's one of the easiest things. It's what you would call a fundamental within understanding elevations and how to measure a change in elevation. Very simple. Parallel horizontals, or differential leveling is what we call it. Rumpus talking to Paige says, now this is Rumpus showing his understanding of globe geometry, right? He says, Paige, squares on the surface of a sphere, if they are small, do not need any special treatment. Big squares are spherical squares. Rumpus has got a confusion about what a square is. He thinks they change because of, well, I don't know whether he thinks they change or not. He's just trying to carry on the sophistry, I think.
And he thinks that these small squares are not sick. Big are sick, and they need better treatment. So I would agree. Yes, spherical squares are sick and they need treatment. They need to be straightened up on the plane to get better.
I literally don't understand that. I mean, would you use the would you, Rumpus, would you use the parallel, the fifth postulate, in order to prove that squares are square on the surface of a sphere? Like you prove, like Blue Marble's going to use to help him prove, with some help from Betty, no doubt, that verticals aren't parallel? I don't know. I'm not too sure. I'm pretty sure that you'd be hellishly confused if you started trying to put squares on a sphere and still call them squares. Rumpus, you're a joke. You and your whole crew, you've been caught, you've been rumbled, you've got nothing. Your sophistry isn't even cutting it as a valid form of logical argument. It's not even good sophistry, Rumpus.
And by the way, why we should look into spherical geometry is in that geometry we cannot have straight line.
All parallel lines. So there's no such thing as a fucking square. Rumpus? You do know what a square is? Oh, fucking hell.
No, hang on, Bev. It's worse than that because spherical geometry paper is two-dimensional
Yes, that's
in the
the
definition.
problem, because in my geometry or Euclidean geometry, on the two-dimensional plane, you can draw straight line. You don't need to. You can draw also curved line. But on the in spherical geometry, you can draw curved line, but you cannot draw straight line. So this is handicap geometry. I don't like it. I don't like handicap geometries. I like normal geometry where I can draw what I want. If I want to draw a straight line in Euclidean geometry, I can do that. On spherical geometry, I cannot draw straight line. I like very much to draw straight lines. So I don't like this spherical geometry because it doesn't allow me to draw straight line, which I like.
What do you reckon to Rumpus's statement about these squares? Sorry.
7.
It's nearly as good as the fucking triangle, isn't it? It's like he's got angles. He's got a square, and each one of the angles of a square is 180 degrees.
Yes, so that would be sorry, that would be straight line, but straight
Each
line
corner.
on spherical geometry, they don't exist. So you cannot have 180 degree in spherical geometry, because all you got is the great circle, and in the great circle line you cannot have 180 degree. Sorry.
He's got a circle, a triangle, and a square, all being the same fucking shape, but with more angles. No, Prince, I'm laughing at the fact that Rumpus thinks a square can have 4 180 degrees. 4 of them. Try drawing it out. Just attempt to draw what Rumpus is saying. Make a line, and then at the end of the line, put a 180 degree corner. And then put your other line, and then put another 180 degree corner to your square. It's just a straight line. Literally, it's just a straight line. Now, if you want to imagine that straight line as being a circle, well, off you go. But you've got a better imagination than I have. I know what a square is. A square has 4 right angles, not 4 180 degrees, not 4 double right angles. It's ridiculous. Do you know what is there to understand about spherical geometry other than it's fucking ridiculous? It's obviously not real. Like, enough with the fantasy. You guys are crazy. And I notice you've brought in some help, Rumpus, but literally, it's fucking stupid. You can't have squares on spheres. Doesn't happen. You cannot have a square with 4 180 degree. The same as you can't have a triangle with 3 180 degree. It's mental. It's crazy. You guys are mad. And it's worth laughing at. I mean, but I don't mean to laugh at the mentally afflicted. But the globe model has definitely done that to Rumpus. Nobody else would say it. Spherical geometry isn't real. Yes. It doesn't exist. There's no way you can physicalize something that is as ridiculous as you thinking a circle can be the same as a triangle and a square all at the same time, except you add extra angles. 720 degrees. The shape looks like a circle in your mind, except you've added another 360 degrees to it. Nice, Rumpus. I'm getting it. I'm having that. We're having that. Thank you very much. There you go. Rumpus says a square starting at the North Pole, equator, South Pole, equator, is 4 points each with 180 degrees at each junction. He still thinks you can have a square with 180 degree corners. You're mad, Rumpus. Literally mad. And a model has placed you in this position. That's it. Simple. You've got all fucking messed up with what an angle is and what a square is. Madness. Madness. Try Googling spherical trigonometry. Try Googling trigonometry first and get a good foundation of where the proofs lie within actual trigonometry. The formulation of a triangle, the propositions that go for the understanding of how you derive that about a triangle. And then you will understand exactly what it is about the straight lines within the triangle and the perpendicular relationship that allows you to be able to predict things. You'll understand then that there's no curve to it. Triangles just have straight lines. Every triangle has 180 degrees. You can't imagine that a triangle has 540 degrees, Rumpus. Like you cannot imagine a square has 720 degrees. That's just mad. It's like two squares. 720 is literally two squares, not one. 2. 4 right angles. That's it. It's 4 right angles on the outside of a square, and if you have the diagonals, you would then have 4 right angles internally, proving the full 360, proving that all right angles are equal. All of the proportions of the sides of the squares are in direct proportionality because the diagonals are the same. A square is proof of the triangles being all equal, all the right angles being equal internally and externally, that all of the angles are there within a square. It's one of the tools that we get use in reality every day. Working men use a square for many purposes, but it's needed, it's fundamental within the geometric principles that we use in reality. You can definitely realize that geometric principle. The other one, the spherical geometry, cannot be realized. It's not real, it's conceptual only. The geometry we use in this reality, all of us use, is Euclidean. If you want to know about the principles and how it's formed, there's a brilliant book that will help teach you logic processes. It's called The Elements. It's the foundations of mathematics. To this day, cannot be refuted by anybody, let alone some muppet on Discord that imagines squares can have 720 degrees and each corner is a 180.
And by the way, this is false. All these numbers they put into these spherical squares are false.
Huh?
It is very easy to prove falsity, because from each corner, if you create a measurement to any point, you will have different measurements of an angle, different angles. So if they say that in the corner is, let's say, 90 degree, and it is more, obviously, it means that they put this numbers wrongly. This is wrong number. Whatever numbers they put there, these numbers are false, not true. Because at each point of this curved sides, we have different angles. So you cannot say that this is this angle. You cannot say that. They should specify at which points have this angle they claim. And they don't do that. So this is just deception.
Well, we've got somebody in the chat there. At least they do have somebody for Blue Marble to get to help him. Not just Rumpus. There's a guy called the Prince, I think, that's saying we can use spherical geometry in reality somehow.
Absolutely not. False statement of fact, because you cannot use an angle using curved adjacent. Only one. It is
Just
impossible.
tell him that it's two-dimensional and he can take that to the bank.
No, the spherical geometry, so-called, is not two-dimensional.
It is.
Geometry.
It is. It's even in Wiki down as that. It is the two-dimensional surface of a sphere. That tells you how conceptual it is, but that's literally what they state. Spherical geometry is the two-dimensional surface. It's the geometry on the two-dimensional surface of a sphere. And these guys eat it up. They love it. That changes what two-dimensional is to them. Their model affliction helps them to change what two-dimensional actually means.
But this is self-contradictory definition, because if you have to have a surface of the sphere being two-dimensional, it means and all lines you have on the sphere are curved lines, it means that your dimensional lines are curved.
No,
means-
no. You're still stuck in Euclidean. That's what you're thinking of Euclidean. You cannot get away from Euclidean right now. That's reality Euclidean. The sphere in your understanding is Euclidean, right? What you've got to do is think not that, right? Not that. So you've got to think about the two-dimensional surface of a sphere. It's impossible, right? But that's the idea. You've got to have and hold that impossibility for you to be able to conceptualize spherical geometry.
That's the word.
Yeah.
It's a conception. It's not real.
Yeah.
It's not something we use in reality, like Euclidean geometry with spheres and cubes. It's a conceptual, like, mathematic construct.
No, I would disagree. Not mathematical, because in mathematics
Yeah.
you have to
There's
you
proof.
you have to be logic.
Yeah, there's no proof to this, right? It's not mathematical. This is highly, purely conceptual. Now, I would say to everybody, don't even attempt to try and take this on. What you will end up with is the nutsack. You have to put your mind in a place that isn't reality. And that is a very dangerous thing, because out of it, you may start believing that the surface of a sphere can be 2D. In your mind gets messed up that badly that you redefine what two-dimensional is because of your model. The model literally dictates something to you, so you become afflicted by that model. Afflicted to the point that you don't understand what 2D or 3D is, because you have a 2D surface of a sphere that is meant to be not Euclidean. But what these guys end up doing is they need to mesh the two together. So they think that not Euclidean is the surface of an actual sphere. But that's definitely Euclidean. And then at that point, you know, that's why these guys are in here. What you end up doing when you get that badly afflicted, you go round YouTube channels talking to people that are trying to talk logic and sense about proofs in reality, and talk about how geometric proofs are derived and the understanding of what two-dimensional is. And you just troll chats trying to pass on your paralogisms, trying to deceive people like you've been deceived yourselves. That's exactly what you do. Like you act like the prince with no rebuttal, just sort of saying, and we're like, but he thinks the prince guy thinks that the surface of a sphere is two-dimensional. It's completely been nutsacked. He's lost it. And I don't think there's a way, once you've had your logical system exploded in your mind like that, I don't think you can come back. I don't think you can put all of those pieces together again. Prince, let me tell you again, I will say this, I've said this to many people many different times. A sphere is a Euclidean shape. It's within book 11, the solid geometry. You may know a sphere as being a ball. Now, the surface of the ball is three-dimensional. It is in reality. You know it's a sphere because it is three-dimensional. If it were two-dimensional, it would be what we call a circle. But since it's a sphere and it's a ball in reality, and it's described in solid geometry, the three-dimensional part of Euclidean geometry, we know it's 3D. Only people who are afflicted by a model can or have to imagine that that surface of that sphere is 2D. The model tells you you have to.
And by the way, the same is with cube. We have 6 surfaces, but you can say that the cube has one surface, but this one surface of whole cube is 3-dimensional, not 2-dimensional. Cube has 6 2-dimensional surfaces, being squares, each one on different plane, and that's why, because they are on different planes, it means that the whole surface of the cube is 3-dimensional, not 2-dimensional. Therefore, the whole surface of the sphere has to be 3-dimensional.
Yeah, we have been over this quite a few times.
Yes, but
Yeah.
just reminding.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's good to go over it. I'm talking to the Prince in particular, because this is the new guy that's obviously trying to put his sophistry into it, and he's coming out with the typical thing now, right? The surface of anything is 2D, he says. Not understanding that everything in reality is 3D. Everything.
And by the way, he doesn't understand, I think, that to measure a cubic surface, you need 3 axes for that, not 2. So it cannot be 2-dimensional.
Very simple, basic geometric proofs and understanding comes from the foundations of mathematics. Now, the foundations of mathematics is geometry. It is the elements. It's called the elements, and it's basically it's geometry, but geometry is the science of a straight line, really. It's the science of points and lines, and the relationship that these points and lines have with each other, built around a logical system, so you can understand the process that gets you from A to B. The proof then helps you derive another theorem, which can then be proved as a follow-on. And the elements is a series of these proof, theorem, on and on and on, where each proof builds upon the one that comes before it. And it's a logical system, it's an axiomatic system, where everything follows and is derived within the one system. It's a perfect system. And that's why we use that system within mathematics, because it helps us derive our answers and know that there is a certainty behind those. It's what we call deductive logic. The answer can definitely be known and proved multiple ways often, to help you derive and come to an understanding. But it's the logic that leads us to that. Now, that knowledge, gaining of knowledge, is what we would call science. But maybe not other people. But here's one of the things I used to say, right? You cannot science geometry.
Excuse me, can I just say something?
Go on then.
Okay, for those who wouldn't call it science, they might, but they wouldn't say it's adhering to the scientific method. Done.
Well, I would say geometry definitely follows the scientific method, because you can state your thing and you can show what it is that you are stating to be true. It comes out with a conclusion, a proof at the end. So I would say that is the original forming of how you come around to the method of deriving that proof is shown within geometry. The idea then is for you to take that method into reality, and you can use it multiple ways to try and find that proof in reality. It's a knowledge gaining system. Geometry, it's a lot more than just drawing circles and squares and triangles. But it depends whether you're into that sort of stuff, or puzzle solving. I mean, what this is about really is there's a few people, not many, but a couple, let's say, that are in the chat, and they're saying that the surface of a sphere, the surface of everything, is 2D. Now, how far do you need to go to understand that anybody that says that must have an ulterior motive for saying it? Because it just sounds ridiculous. It just doesn't make any sense why somebody would say that. So you have to find out, why are they saying that? And for you to understand what 2D is, you need to understand geometry, because that's where these dimensions, this is where the whole understanding of where these dimensions are is put into the understanding of mathematics. So when somebody says the surface of everything is 2D, you should know how ridiculous that is. But hey, just everyday people. Some people have been told that other people are much cleverer than them. But when it comes down to it, are you going to listen to somebody telling you what 2 dimensions is, when you know that we live in 3 dimensions? Maybe you could get somebody to shoehorn in another dimension. Maybe you're willing for somebody to tell you that they can add the internal angles of a square into another square, like Rumpus did.
That's what their leaders tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Fight the Flat Earth was telling me and 1,000 of his listeners the other day that every surface is 2D.
And then you got to point out to them, like, so you think the surface of Earth is 2D?
Yes,
with
they
hills,
do.
mountains. Yeah, they do. Like, they're fucked.
Yeah. And they're literally, if they think the surface of everything is 2D, then they think the surface of the Earth is 2D. I would call them flat earthers. They want to believe everything is flat, because that's
don't
what
realize
2D
that.
is.
That's the
100%.
killer of it. They don't realize by saying that they become flat earthers.
Yeah.
Because newsflash, 2D cannot curve.
Yeah, you either got to have a really bad misunderstanding of the basics of geometry, or just be a complete sophist. And I'm pretty much thinking that a lot of these people have fooled themselves. That their shadow giants aren't, they're not even real. Even the shadow giants are imaginary. They're fakes. They're frauds. They're not real. Half of them are dead. And the ones that are still around, the shadow giants, like Jesse Kozlowski. Who else is the other ones that's cited? I guess nowadays, McToon and Fight the Flat Earth have become the shadow giants. And when these shadow giants say stupid shit, other stupid people repeat it. Such as Rumpus and the Prince. They're willing to come in here, tell us that the surface of a sphere is 2D.
Yep.
Crazy flat earthers would say that. I would consider that anyway. The only people that are crazy enough to say that the surface of a sphere is 2D is the crazy flat earthers. You rely on spherical geometry every day. No, we don't. No, we do not.
No one relies on spherical geometry.
No. He doesn't know who Rumpus is. Not a lot of people do. Rumpus is some weirdo that thinks the surface of a sphere is 2D. Rumpus is a crazy freak that thinks squares have 720 internal angles for 180-degree corners. I mean, how mad do you have to be to think that a square can have 4 180-degree corners?
And how he can establish corner there? Because it is a circle. So how can you determine where the corner is?
It's a 2-dimensional surface of a sphere. Whatever the fuck that is. Like, that's an impossibility. Descartes, it's a non-developable surface, yet you're going to say it's 2D.
They don't realize
Gauss, not Descartes.
I was going to say, they don't realize by saying 2D surface, right? That means that everything that they've ever touched, coffee cup you're going to drink tomorrow morning, the chair you're sitting, the table you might be touching right now, the floor you're walking on, is a concept. They think that you're walking on a concept, touching a concept, because 2D is just a concept. It's amazing.
Flatland.
Yeah, flatland. Plato's cave.
Yeah, the poor guy's been indoctrinated into believing that everything that he touches is 2D. And he thinks we are satirizing him. He thinks he's living in a dreamland at the minute, being taught about actual Euclidean geometry.
They've been taught this.
Yeah.
They've read this somewhere.
I bet it is frightening.
True. Yeah.
I bet like Betty, he's afraid. Afraid to find out that reality is Euclidean. It must be hard, right? If you've been taught that the surface of a sphere is 2D, and you've never been taught actual geometry, you've never been taught Euclidean and the basic axiomatic system, proof on proof on proof, finding out that you're actually talking like a flat earther must be really shocking. Because I mean, I bet he's coming here to ridicule flat earthers, only to find out that he's the one that says the surface of a sphere is 2D. Now, he must either have a
relating-
really bad understanding of what geometry and 2 dimensions is, or he's been taught a load of lies by a load of people and then just been taught, don't actually look into Euclidean geometry. Don't do that.
They say foolish things,
Mm.
like variable radiuses. And then when you play the video of them saying this incredibly dumb thing, well, then they tell you got to take that video down. It's you're infringing. It's just too funny. The things they have to say to support this ridiculous model of theirs.
No, Prince, no, we're not the flat earthers. You're the one that thinks the surface of a sphere is 2D. You do know what 2 dimensions is. Length and breadth. We call it like a plane surface. And you think the surface of everything is 2D. Surely you understand how elevation changes are measured.
He's asking what model? What model?
Yeah. The model that you think
No model,
surface
no
of
model.
everything is 2D.
I can
Yeah,
measure.
that one.
I can measure anything in the air without model.
Yeah. In 3D, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
3 axes.
You can
3
measure
axes.
all of the dimensions, the 3 dimensions of something. You, on the other hand, Prince, you think the surface of a sphere is 2-dimensional, which is literally ridiculous.
You're walking on a concept. You're touching a concept. You live in concept land. Think about it. Think about what you're saying for a minute. It's like saying there's a cartoon on your ball. There's a cartoon. You're walking on a cartoon on your surface. Like, it's a concept. 2D is not real, dude. It's just a concept.
You can think of a dimension as a direction, a straight line. Now,
Yes,
these ones
direction.
are perpendicular to each other. It's the best way of doing it is the perpendicularity. Once you understand about a straight line and its maximum opposition, which what we would call a perpendicular, means you generate a right angle, and there are 4 of those. Well, you can do that in 3 dimensions. You can have 3 of these lines that are perpendicular to each other. 3
You need the Z.
and only
Z.
3.
Yes, and this
Yep.
this is the way to avoid confusing measurements, because if you have this perpendicularity, so if you are moving along one of these axes, it means that you are moving only on this axis. If you are moving, let's say, point or location on a straight line being axis, for example, x, it means that you are moving only on this axis. The other measurements on other axes don't change. So if you are moving along z-axis only, it means that your measurement on x and y axis doesn't change. And if you have curved dimensions, which don't exist, you are affecting other dimensions. So it is even in Euclid, I would say that he was talking about magnitudes being commensurable and incommensurable. So that would mean that this curved line would be incommensurable with others if it was curved line. So we cannot use curved line to establish dimension because it follows in two axes, not one. So it is impossible to have curved dimension.
Is paper low just for me?
Yeah,
Like
I
he's
think
like
so.
a third lower than everybody else.
No, he sounds normal to me. I'm pretty sure
Really?
the levels, the levels sound good
Okay.
at this end.
So this is impossible to have curved dimension. And in dictionary, it is measurement in one particular direction. One direction means straight line, because if you are going with a curved line, you are changing direction all the time, like in a circle or section or parabolic line. You are constantly changing direction. Therefore, this line cannot be considered as dimension.
I'd have to put Prince down as like controlled opposition, right? He's in there saying that to deny the existence of spherical geometry, a conceptual thing that doesn't exist at all. He says to deny that is childish, which goes to show the state of his mind, actually, for being able to believe that two-dimensional can be realized. That little of an understanding has the Prince about this.
This is non-substantial statement. I can easily deny Narnia. So that's why I can also deny spherical geometry, because they are pretty much the same.
Yeah, I can prove Euclidean geometry. Therefore, I'm guessing there's no proof for spherical, because you can't prove. Like, it's the same as, right, if you have a proof that a triangle has 180 degrees and only 180 degrees, then in my mind, you cannot come up with a proof that a triangle has 540 degrees as well. That just doesn't make any logical sense at all. Yet, some people will try and tell you, like Rumpus, that a square has 720, which means that half of the square, the triangle, has 360.
Don't forget,
It's
these
just
are the same
mad.
people that. Don't forget, these are the same people that believe a square could have 5 sides as well, or 3.
3, 4, or 5, says Blue Marble Science, right?
Yes, sir.
And
Yep.
I bet his mate, Rob Parks, the contradictory definitional professor, joining together with Beddy, the proofless contradictory globe logician.
I doubt Rob believes in that. I doubt that.
But they don't have to believe it. They just have to say it. It's like Prince here. He says he's driving, but he's doing a lot of typing. He can't come in chat because he's driving, but then he's typing. So he's obviously not driving, unless he's getting his phone to dictate that while he is driving.
Yeah, keep your eyes on the road if you are. Stay safe. Do not do that.
Yeah. Please don't.
Not worth it.
Or, we can just imagine that you're bullshitting. A lot of people do that around here.
No, but just imagine where your mind has to go to believe that everything you like right now I'm sitting, right? I have to believe that I'm touching an imaginary surface, a concept.
Yeah, asking brings up a good point. Prince, we have heard this 1,000 times. Now, to you, what we're saying, coming from reality, you may never have heard of this before. You may never have heard somebody saying, do you sure you know what 2 dimensions is and 3 dimensions? And have you ever looked into Euclidean geometry and the proofs within that? People may have never said that to you before, Prince. But we've definitely heard the stupid stuff that you're coming out with, and we've proved it false. Like, it's easy to prove things like this false. To show you your misunderstanding of what you imagine Euclidean geometry to be. But then you also think that a part of that Euclidean geometry is not Euclidean. Which is so flawed within the logical structure. You then have to start going back to talking about how simple logic can be formed. And I think if you're talking to somebody who's got an exploded mind, like obviously the Prince and Rumpus, Blue Marble Science, Betty, Wally, people like that, then I'm not too sure you are capable of talking to them, conversing in any structured way. But I mean, this is Model Affliction Monday. This is the points that we should be bringing up. It's sort of where I was hoping this was going to go anyway, but I mean, we haven't even needed to talk about the other things yet. We're waiting for Rob. Anytime, Rob. I can't remember what else I was going to go over.
It's been such a hairy day today,
Yeah, no problem.
but I'll just say quickly, and then you guys can just don't shoot the messenger, all right? Look, I got a lot of love for Nathan Oakley, okay? So on his show today, a man named Elijah decided to give you a little bit of credit and come up with a new housekeeping question. I'm just gonna state it and then I gotta go. Please don't shoot me. But I think it's valid because I was thinking of one of the other housekeeping questions. I'm just gonna state it real quick here, which is any evidence of a molten iron core at the center of a presupposed spherical Earth. That's one of their housekeeping questions, right? So we got a new one in the works. I'm not going to say it's a new housekeeping question already, but it's in the works. And it basically goes like this. Any evidence that level is equidistant from the center of the Earth. I'm done. I would use horizontal, but level and horizontal are the same to me. But in the show, they seem to be at odds with those two terms. I'm done.
Elijah came
Thank
up
you.
with this one.
And gave credit to Beth. Don't forget, they all tried to credit
Okay,
that.
yeah.
And I gotta go.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
Shout out to Nathan Oakley.
I would say that this is hard to disprove a thing which is not existent, but it is easy to prove things we can observe. So I would say that better phrasing for this question would be to prove or to show that horizontal is not parallel to level or something like that. Because it would be something like experiment, some demonstration, because conceptually you can answer this question because no one were in the center of the presupposed globe. So it is hard to prove, it is impossible to prove and disprove in that way. But if we have question if horizontal is not parallel to any evidence that horizontal is not parallel to horizon or to level, that would be easy to prove that it is parallel and impossible to prove that it is not. So for me, it would be better formed question.
I'll make a long story short, if I may. Very simple. That statement, right? Like you just said, it's impossible to prove. And why? The reason is this: we've went only 7.8 miles, the Kola deep borehole. So, yeah, that's what I'll say to that one. Think about that one before you make it.
Well, I personally think it's a bit weird, because I know for a fact I've done it twice, the proof of level being horizontal. So I have a proof that level is a straight line. I've been on Nathan Oakley's to sort of show them that as well. I've showcased it over there. I've showcased it over in many places. We've done an actual test to show proposition 1 in book 11 of Euclidean geometry. So we have proofs that level is a straight line. So to me, what Nathan's doing is he's completely disregarding the actual positive proof of something and asking other people of proof of the opposite. It's sort of backwards. I think it's a strange way to go about things, to ask for a proof of something, because it to me it shows that Nathan Oakley has no proof of his own. Otherwise, he would be showing people that proof, or attempting to show people that proof, talking about that proof. So perhaps Nathan Oakley doesn't actually believe that proofs are possible. I don't know. Maybe Nathan Oakley thinks that proof is only accessible through a scientific method, which is the laying out of a syllogism in order to make a proof statement and show the evidence of that proof. I mean, I don't know. To me, it just seems strange way to go about things.
But still, horizontal being parallel to level or to horizon, which are the same, it is within the scientific method.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I mean.
So
why is he asking for something, proof to a centre, when there is actually proof of something? It's like asking for proof of an angle to a curve when you know angles are between two straight lines. Like you're asking for something that can never be given.
I gotta jump in for 1 sec. That's why I prefaced this whole start with the other housekeeping question of any evidence of a molten iron core at the center of a presupposed spherical earth. That is a housekeeping question that they ask every day.
That's beautiful, Rob. I would give the same answer. No, because we've only went up to 7.8 miles when they dug the Kola borehole in Russia. I would give the same answer.
Thank you. I just wanted to preface it that I know it's a presupposition in the question. That's why it maybe being a new question, it might catch some attention, and it might even throw some attention our way. I thought it was a good thing.
Because, for example, if they have question any evidence of curvature of the Earth, that would be linked to reality because we can see something. So we can determine by seeing something if the surface is curved or not curved, but it is easier to prove or disprove. But this molten iron core and the center of the level inside of Earth, this is just impossible. So to prove or disprove. So
Yeah, but there's a difference here. The molten iron core question is a brilliant question. Why? Because that's the claim. You see? And there's no way to prove it.
Who's making the claim, though? That's half of this is who is making the claim and why are they making that claim? Because I can guarantee you, if you go out into reality and talk to anybody, nobody would make the claim that level is curved. So why are you asking people to show you evidence of something that nobody would ever claim, apart from you end up saying, who's going to be saying it more often now? Nathan Oakley's going to be talking about the curve.
I got an answer. When you read the dictionary definition of level, it says conforming to the curved parts of water's surface or some gibberish.
No,
this is
that's one definition in one dictionary. Yeah, only one.
No, I'm just saying that's where they got the idea. Remember, this is not Nathan Oakley either. I preface this by saying this was Elijah that brought this question forward, and they formulated it that way they did. I'm not saying it's 100% right, but I'm telling you where they got it from. Because Elijah read the dictionary definition and read something about conforming to the curved surface of liquid water, which we all know it ain't curved. Over here, we know that, but the ballers use that definition. So this is a question directed at ballers to get them to come in and try and prove their baller claim. Thank you. I'm done.
Right. Well, like we have been going over this many times. It's a one dictionary that has a couple of different definitions within it, right, of level. I've made a meme of it and it's here, right? It may look a bit confusing at first, but the definition of one of three states it's a device for establishing a horizontal line or plane by means of a bubble in a liquid that shows adjustment to the horizontal. Obviously, a bubble level, a spirit level, that's that one. Number two is a measurement of the difference of altitude of 2 points by means of a level. That's talking about elevation changes using differential leveling, the tool, a level. The third one states a horizontal condition, especially the equilibrium of a fluid marked by a horizontal surface of even altitude. That particularly is talking about a water level. These are different levels, right? So it calls it a horizontal condition, and then it says an equilibrium of a fluid marked by a horizontal surface of even altitude. Not elevation, altitude. The water level, the tool, is above the surface of the floor, the elevation of the land. So it's an even altitude. Water level, the tool. Then it says the adjective level, definition entry 3 of 3. then states, having no part higher than another, even altitude, conforming to the curvature of the liquid parts of the Earth's surface. Right, so we will refer back to the fluid bit that it was talking about, equilibrium of a fluid marked by a horizontal surface of even altitude. It even states water seeks its own level. So we'll go back to the liquid parts of the Earth's surface, as in the dictionary that we're talking about. It states it conforms to the curvature of the liquid parts of the Earth's surface. Okay? The liquid parts of the Earth's surface is water.
But it doesn't.
It's water,
Yeah,
isn't
it
it? Okay. So we'll go back. The water level, it states, is a horizontal condition. Now, how much curvature is there in a horizontal condition?
0.00.
So when it states it conforms to the curvature of the liquid parts of the Earth's surface, it's conforming to the zero curvature of the horizontal condition.
This was where the after show kicked in. Like when I was listening to the after show, and they're like, "We need to call Merriam-Webster, tell them they have a contradiction in their definition."
There's no contradiction. People are allowed, because of the way you've been conditioned, to think whatever you want to derive from this. But when you link it like this, the water is the liquid part of the Earth's surface. And it states a water seeks its own level, an even altitude, a horizontal condition. There's no curvature to that. But if you want to imagine that there is a curvature to a horizontal, you can, through the words and the way this is wrote, you can imagine that. And a lot of people do. They imagine that the horizontal has a curvature to it. It has to, because their model dictates it. So that's where they imagine it. Merriam-Webster has only been wrote like this to allow people to imagine things.
Yes,
But when you read it literally, there's no lie there.
yes, this is sophistry. This is sophistry, because in fact, if you use word curvature, you automatically should think that this is positive curvature, because saying about curvature being not curvature, it's kind of odd, I would say. So this suggestion is not honest here. This is not a lie, blatant lie, but I would say that this is not honest here to say that what they say.
Yeah. Well,
Because,
there is that extra logical part, right? There's the reasoning part that you have to employ for yourself to be able to see around this, see through this, because this is obviously a play, right? To allow people to believe things, and people can imagine whatever they want out of it. They do. I think a true logical mind will be able to see right through that, but not a lot of people can. And people will make allowances for other people. But if this one definition wasn't in this dictionary, they'd have nothing.
I would say that I think that this is definition only in internet version of dictionary, because I have normal Webster, not Merriam-Webster, but
Yeah, no, this is
still
the
Webster.
only dictionary that states this. Only one. Not in the Oxford Dictionary, not in Webster's original or anything, any others. Any other dictionary you want to imagine, you will not find this particular definition mentioning curvature. because there is none.
Well, isn't that interesting, folks?
It's obvious, right? The reality is that horizontals are parallel. Level is horizontal. That's a reality statement. And people have been getting upset at us for saying that. The problem is, right, you have level and you have level being horizontal. The tool, the level, makes and establishes a horizontal plane. Then we use these horizontal planes to measure elevation changes. Those measured elevation changes prove it's not flat. So you can't have flat Earth being proved by the tool that proves it isn't flat. It's a contradiction again.
That was beautiful.
Reality is what reality is. And that's why this title of this show is, do you know how to measure elevation changes? And that's with horizontal planes that are parallel to each other. That's provable in reality. So, I mean, yes, we can give these proofs. We can show these proofs. And we have been doing that. But it seems that people don't want that. They want to ask for the other. The not. Give me the not that, please. Let's not bother actually proving the is. Let's try and ask people if they can prove the not that.
See, if you go to reality, right? Everybody has experienced this. Like, you can go to your Home Depot, your hardware store, and buy a 6-foot level, right? Sure, most people have that somewhere in their house. So now you would have to imagine, if you're one of these dudes or these people, that is not level at all from one end to the other. You have to imagine that curves. But you have to equally imagine if you stick a whole bunch of them on either end, obviously a normal person knows that they're going to be all level, right? You have to imagine that they're going to have to start curving.
No, you can't scale, bro.
Oh, come on, look, I mean, let's forget about the curvature one. The very thing on definition of the very same dictionary earlier, the one that predates it, it comes before it in the list about a water level, states it's a horizontal condition.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how can you just deny that, go past that, and then say, well, this one here mentions the liquid parts of the Earth's surface and matching the curvature of that? I mean, if that isn't cherry picking and being blinded to the actual evidence that's there within the dictionary, they're literally denying one part of the dictionary to misunderstand another part of the dictionary, the very same one.
Yeah. And if you don't want to think about words or anything fancy like that, just think of a level, a spirit level. That's all you got to do and extend it. Now, in your brain, try to think, when will this thing start not being level? Just ask yourself that question.
If it is a real curve, it has to start immediately. You change one mathematical point and it is not level.
I've had people tell me that a spirit level is only level at the center, and either point is, I believe they said, higher. Yes, higher at a spirit level, the one you buy to measure in your home to build a wall or whatever. That same one is not level. It's only level in the middle, and either end are higher or lower than the other.
Oh. Yeah, I've got
I
another
mean,
one.
come on.
Same dictionary,
Yeah, those ones are
Merriam-Webster.com.
definitely smoking sauna.
is Merriam-Webster with horizontal adjective that states of or relating to the apparent junction of earth and sky situated near the horizon, or B, parallel to, in the plane of, or operating in a plane parallel to the horizon, or to a baseline, double dot, level, horizontal distance, a horizontal engine. That's horizontal. The definition of horizontal in the very same dictionary, which double checks the level. It refers back to level. So level, horizontal, horizontal, back to level. Same thing. In the dictionary that they're trying to say there's some sort of curvature. How do you do that? Well, anybody that goes with anybody that's saying there's some sort of curvature there, if you placate them, you are allowing them to believe that it's worth placating. It's not. Horizontal, level, level, horizontal. It's provable, both geometrically, practically. It's used practically. The only people that disagree are mentally deranged people. That's the way I'm looking at it. There's no need to ask them to try and, imagine their delusions, because they're so far removed from reality. I don't think we should be talking to them, to be honest. Definitely don't talk to somebody who's mad about their delusions. It's not good. We've had to learn those lessons, because when you start to talk to people about their delusions and then you tell them that their delusions aren't real, well, they get really upset and they say some pretty bad things. And I don't think most of them are with it to that point that they you never know what they might be capable of, let's put it that way.
Have you ever told a crazy person that they're crazy?
You can't, can you?
No.
Rob, you're fucking crazy.
It doesn't mean that Rob is crazy. It only means that you are saying that he's crazy.
Yeah, I did bring this whole debacle in today.
In order to live in their fantasy la la land, you have to believe that a spirit level curves and that a plumb bob does not hang plumb everywhere. It's truly like out of this world. The very tools we use to construct every building ever built, they're not real. It's not like that.
See, the Prince is saying there's also a definition for spherical geometry too. Well, I mean, does the definition of spherical geometry contradict level being horizontal and horizontal being level? The same thing. Do they refer back to each other? Does the inclusion of a definition for spherical geometry, being the two-dimensional geometry, right, does that add anything into it or not? I mean, the Prince in his ECV seems to think that the inclusion of a definition of something else contradicts the level and horizontal definitions. I mean, it's mad. There's no proof for spherical geometry. There is no. Give us your best proof. within spherical geometry of something. Like a triangle. Of how the angles of a triangle are worked out. It's crazy.
My first question would be how he measures angles on the sphere. Because they say
Definition of
that
what an angle
this is triangle, so it has angle. So let him choose one of these angles, and let him explain how he measured this angle of this supposedly triangle. I am very curious how he measured.
You know the definition of spherical geometry?
No, is any in any dictionary?
Yeah, this is in Merriam-Webster, because he said there's a definition of... I'll give it you here. There you go. There you go.
Great.
Wow, that's too long. How long did it take to download?
But that sphere is a Euclidean sphere.
Excuse me, for those of us that can't
Terrible.
watch, can you read some of this shit
It
out?
just says spherical geometry, noun. The geometry of figures on a sphere. No, so no wonder they've got a confusion about drawing things on balls. And that's the way the dictionary tells them. I mean, it's not. A ball is a Euclidean sphere.
But for me, this is not enough.
Well, it's a non thing anyway, isn't it?
Yes, because
you can imagine that's whatever you want.
Drawing something on the ball, it doesn't make geometry. And the same thing is drawing anything on paper. If you are just drawing painting on the paper, or just drawing normal like pencil, like for example, gadget inspector is drawing. So
yeah.
that would be a geometry.
Yeah, that would be plane geometry. Would be the geometry of figures on a plane.
How about a cube? Would that be cubical geometry?
I'll tell you what I'll do. I will just Google. I will not Google. I will look through that. Thingy there, and we will put in Euclidean. And then we will see. Here's the difference. It's pretty
funny.
short
You think
and
they have
concise.
axioms, they have all kinds of stuff for their, but they don't. They just have one sentence.
There you go. Here is Euclidean geometry. It says, no capital there on Euclidean. It says, often capitalized, the geometry based on Euclid's axioms. So at least there's axioms behind Euclidean geometry. And the geometry of a Euclidean space.
Which has how many books written about all that stuff?
Well, where is a Euclidean space? That's where we're in it, aren't we?
Right now,
Yeah.
where everyone's sitting at.
Everybody is in Euclidean space. So that is where we use Euclidean geometry. Gauss said you could tell what space you were in when you measured the internal angles of a triangle. That's how we know we are in Euclidean 3 space, because when you measure the internal angles of a triangle, you find you have 180 every time. That tells you you're in Euclidean geometry, a Euclidean 3 space, and you should apply Euclidean geometry to that system.
So if you get 720, there's a problem.
Well, it's impossible. You can't.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, these guys, you know, they're clever. They're Discord, they're YouTube guys. I mean, like, how qualified would you have to be able to come and argue in a YouTube chat about spherical geometry, the thing that you know absolutely nothing about? And don't forget, whilst talking about spherical geometry, you're having to literally deny Euclidean geometry in the Euclidean space that we live in. You have to deny the axiomatic system of Euclidean geometry. You have to deny the definitions of level, a water level establishing a horizontal condition of even altitude. That has to go. You can't have that. I mean, you know the position that Blue Marble's in at the minute, with the hump and the drop. All the horizontals being parallel, as proved by elevation profiles. And
changing radiuses, don't forget that. Flexible radii.
Yeah, the thing is, the Prince, nobody does use it because it's not real. It's conceptual. It can't be used. It can't be physicalized. The only geometry in reality that exists is Euclidean, because that's the space we live in. There's no space for those extra angles that you're imagining. You can't put them in there. Therefore, Euclidean geometry, shout out to that. Yeah, don't think you're arguing against flat Earth here, Prince. It's not flat. These proofs go to prove it's not flat. But proving that level is horizontal and they're the same thing is very easy, and we can do that. And nobody would be saying that level being horizontal is flat Earth. That would be ridiculous. I would hope not. Nobody would be saying that, because that's definitely provable. If we can't have something that proves it's not flat being the proof that it is flat, is ridiculous. But who knows? There's this is 2022. There's a lot of confused people out there. A lot of confused people.
So they have a sphere which they derive all their calculations to do all this stuff, but it changes. The radius changes.
We are cult of Euclid.
Yeah.
And cult of Aristotle.
Yeah.
And whatever.
The cult of logical thinking. Oh, I like that.
Better than cult of space-time fabric la la land. I'll take that anytime.
Yeah, it's like, this is just reality. There's no need for anybody to get upset about what they imagine, the implications of what reality and we can prove in reality dictate to anybody. I don't get upset. Keep your model in your box and just come for a conversation. You're best off keeping your model out of the conversations and just trying to relate to reality. There's no need for anybody to have a model or bring a model into a conversation about reality. Euclids. Do you see planes do 390-degree angles to get... Planes don't do 90-degree angles, Prince. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen how planes fly, but they don't take 90-degree thingies. I've never experienced that. Has anybody ever experienced a plane doing a 90?
Is he serious?
I think so. He says, yeah. He says, you see planes do 390-degree angles to get back to the point they started. I mean, that's fantastic. Planes don't fly at angles like that, Prince. One of the things, I think I made a joke about it. Angle measuring devices, of all of the angle measuring devices, the aeroplane is like gotta be the worst invention of the globe angle measuring devices. Like, I don't know who gave you that one. Possibly Wolfie started it. Maybe McToon. I don't know. It sounds crazy enough to be part of the McToonery thing. But yeah, aeroplanes do not measure or trace out angles. They definitely don't do 90-degree turns.
Maybe a skilled helicopter pilot?
I suppose, yeah. I mean, that would, like, yeah. But an aeroplane turning at 90.
Like the stuff they come up with. At least it makes us laugh, bro.
Yeah, that was Plato's Academy. Let no one ignorant of geometry enter. Very, very good. Eric, this is your captain speaking. Everyone, hold on to your butts. We're about to make a 90-degree turn for the globe.
You read my mind. I was going to say, this is the tower now advising you. Reach 5,000 and take a 90. Like, what?
Oh, 390s
Sheer
to get
insanity.
back, I know. I think I've got a... Pretty sure I drew that ages ago.
I would say that this pilot would say that now we will experience normal maneuver. Just we were going 90-degree in 1
You will not
millimeter.
experience any turbulence. The Coriolis will take over, equal everything out.
And crew said, aye, Captain. Everything normal.
Enjoy your flight on La La Land Air.
Oh, I'm trying to find me a drawing of that. But, like, this is one of those things. It's like trying to draw the square with 4 180-degree corners. You try and draw this 90-degree turn with the plane, 390s. You can imagine that you come back to the same place. I mean, that's literally crazy thinking. Once you know how an angle works and you do 390 degrees. Madness. Right. But that's what the globe model dictates. But you notice as well, we're talking about just geometry, Euclidean geometry, and how it relates to reality. Somebody then has to say spherical geometry, and then they start talking about airplanes doing 90s. Why would they possibly say that? What leads somebody to go from a conversation about Euclidean geometry and then end up talking about planes doing 90 degrees? You've got to be seriously model afflicted for that.
You read it somewhere and you believed it. It's as simple as that. The white coat syndrome.
Somebody said it, right? Now, where do you imagine the places where you hear somebody saying something so ridiculous?
Discord? YouTube?
Yeah. Prince has said it, right? So somebody's heard it tonight because some ridiculous guy. Now, I've repeated it.
24/7. You've probably been hanging out in 24/7.
Well, I'd like anywhere, right? You've heard these conversations. McToon said it. Fight the Flat Earthers said it. So people have heard these people saying these things. Now, we call it a paralogism when it's passed on because there's no proof to go along with this. There's nothing to relate to any reasoning process to go around that can derive you at this conclusion. All there is the words of shadow giants, the passing on of paralogisms. That's where it Thingy's heard it. That's where Prince has heard that. But he felt confident enough to say it, and that confidence level has been building within these people because they've imagined that within this arena where people are talking about stupid things that people make up, and then people are making up rebuttals to the thoughts of crazy people that have been dictated to them by a model. They just keep saying it. There'll be another guy that comes along and says that, yeah, you can, aeroplanes do 90-degree turns, and 3 of them, you end up back at the same place. That's ridiculous. That's a really bad misunderstanding of geometry. In fact, even ignorance of geometry. I would say more so.
So you draw a square on a piece of paper. Everybody has ever, probably every single person listening now has done this before. You look at it. You see 4 lines. You see 4 right angles. You do the math, and somehow you come up with more than 360 in your brain. You come up with the number 720. Now, just that alone, it just boggles my mind. How? Like every child from the age of what, 2, 3, you can draw a square? I don't get it.
Yeah, there's a lot of strange people, because we were talking about these other worlds type thing within logic, where you can, imagine somebody's got a different pair of shoes on or whatever, but it has to stay within reality. I.e., you can't have a circle being a square in this other world, because a circle is a circle and a square is a square. They're defined as such. You can't just change the definitions of something into something they're not. So in that idea, even these concepts where they have squares having more angles, that makes a square not what it is defined to be, a square. It literally makes no sense. It's nonsense. And I personally have been studying, trying to work out why people are like this. What allows people to be able to have the concept of a circle being the same as a triangle and a square?
Because they were taught that.
I don't think they were. I think half of the time they've made up these things because somebody's taught them about reality. Somebody's triggered them with a fact of reality. I know for a fact that since we came around and started talking about the level and horizontal and sticking to it, these guys have developed a thing. Even now, Nathan Oakley is adding to his list that's gone on for years about something about to the center of level. That has only come around because of the things that we've been talking about. We have a proof that level is horizontal, yet the globe model dictates what Nathan Oakley's talking about. Well, to me, I'm not really interested in what Nathan Oakley's talking about. I'm more interested in proving the reality. The level is horizontal. That's all that matters, really, is what actually happens in reality. I'm not bothered about placating to people that say my model says something different. It doesn't bother me. What mad people think about what their model dictates to them. If they can't see reality and the proofs within reality, then why bother? I would say likely. I've probably talked to AI quite a lot. It seems like I'm talking to a lot of robots. The globe model's like that. Definitely. Within text form. Yes, definitely. I mean, what else could keep it going? Maybe that's why there are certain characters that can't talk. Maybe it's because it's just a bot. It's just a bot and it can't talk to us because then it'd give itself away. They've not got the speech patterns good enough. Too many tells. I often wonder why there are so few
You mean
people
like
that are willing
Weimar?
to talk. No, I'm talking about like the WS character. The one that's just constantly typing, like Plato chips. Like a lot of the ones on Twitter. They've been there for years. They just seem to pop up and say random things. Very bot-like characters. Yeah, program responses just go to the insults because there is no actual reply that can be given. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, the other thing that was going on is the fact that people are invoking or calling other people Flat Earth Society. Some people calling other people Flat Earth Society 2.0. What's everybody think about that? The involvement of people within this arena calling other people Flat Earth Society. nobody wants to talk about the Flat Earth Society. And the involvement of it within this community.
I do, but I'm so busy right now. I can't keep muting and unmuting.
What would the Flat Earth Society be doing within this community?
Go on their website and ask them.
That's where I started off, right? That's where when you Google Flat Earth, that's the first place you go to. Which seems to me...
And then you realize it's a fucking shambles.
Well, if they're meant to be silencing it, then why do they put a certain thing at the top of the Google thing? Why do they not have Professor Phil videos or Simon Dan Fight the Flat Earth? You know, why do they have a Flat Earth Society there above at the top? I'd say just because it's just a load of shit. It's just confusion. That's all Flat Earth Society is. Just there to throw all sorts of confusion all over the place. Make everybody not understand what's going on. But also, I'd say there's a fear. Like, when we first came into this, just trying to find out, coming at it with proofs in reality that what is level horizontal being used within surveying, all of us that have actually practically used these tools know for a fact, because you've proved it to yourself, that level is horizontal. Then just saying that and stating it to a group of people seems to trigger them. They then call you a flat earther. Well, level is horizontal. It's a fact of reality. These people call you flat earthers, but if they call you a flat earther for saying level is horizontal, then, I mean, they'll call anybody a flat earther. And if level being horizontal triggers people into calling other people flat earthers, well, then that's what's going to happen. These people are triggered by people saying that level is horizontal. So that needs to be looked into. And we found that, yeah, they get more triggered if you have proof. You show them, you simplify it down to a simple statement. They will still get triggered by it and they'll still call you flat earthers. That's all it is. Now, who is the Flat Earth Society in that? Is it the people that are saying that level is horizontal, if from a reality standpoint? Or is it the people that are throwing, telling you that you are a flat earther? I mean, you can prove it's not flat. What's the definition of flat earth? Who knows? I'd say that everybody, and I mean everybody, has a different definition of what they think flat earth is. Particularly once you add in a flat earther. I mean, what's that? And how does that relate to flat earth? Who knows? I'd still say again, everybody's got their own definitions of all of these things. And the only way you can find out is to talk to people about it.
Right, and my definition of flat earther, even though like it's kind of weird, right? Because I know it's not flat, but I spend a couple hours a day on the subject matter of flat earth. So I consider myself on the flat earth side, even though it's not technically two-dimensional. Do you know what I mean? That's where I'm at. Because I do spend a couple hours every day talking about this shit. Model Affliction Monday, you know.
Well, I think that's where the trivium comes into it, because if you have an understanding of the grammar, the words, the terms that are going to be used, then you can have a productive conversation with people. If you don't come to terms, or i.e. an understanding of what all of the words mean, then you're going to be talking past each other always. And I think what we're after is a bit of conversation. So if anybody wants to talk about any of these things, this is Model Affliction Monday. This is the part where we're going to be talking about particularly the hard-hitting stuff about the model, and that the way models influence your thought patterns around certain subjects, where the model that you're talking about, it doesn't matter which model it is that you're talking about, but there is a way that that model will influence your thought patterns with around a certain subject when you're relating to preconceived ideas, proofs, truths, and just ideas that you can think about. I would say, though, you have to be wary of most of the people and the things in this arena. Seems like if you have a prominent flat earthers that are now calling other prominent flat earthers flat earth society, I'd say that's not good for the flat earth arena. It's not going to be good for conversation. And the future of the conversation within that arena. I don't really like talking about it, but I mean, this is part of the model. It's the model that has led to a breakdown in communication. I'd say on like what we've got is that we've got a very simple argument. We have the argument, and then we have a series of proofs that build upon the argument with new arguments, but proofs on proofs. We try and relate reality to Euclidean proofs as much as we can, and then we can use the Euclidean logical structure and just relate that to reality. That's what we're trying to do here. There are other people that are trying to discuss other areas, and they have their own proofs, their own ways of getting across those proofs. Now, different things for different people, obviously. But when one group starts calling another group shills and stuff like that, well, that's not going to end well, I don't think, unless it's based around drama. If drama is the thing that sells, then that may be what people want. WWFE shit. Could it be a play? Could it be a big thing to, get more people into it? It does seem that within this, people do seem to like, quote unquote, the argument, but not the traditional Aristotelian argument. but the new 2022 argument, where people just shout at each other and call each other ad homs. And I know people have money involvement to all of this, and people have to defend that money, but I don't know. I don't see this ending well for this, whatever it was. Placating to people with delusions, allowing them to think that they have some sort of a case, and even imagining that they were winning. When I came into this green thinking that I might get some answers from people. But all I've found is that nobody will talk. There are some questions that nobody will answer. People just pretend they didn't hear it. Ignore. Not answer. Misunderstand. Purposely misunderstand it. Hopefully we can go forward and get some more conversations going. Everyone's gone quiet and it's me talking shit again. It's about time we end this, I think.
For me, it's time to bed.
Yeah, yeah.
This is around 1
Thanks, Bev.
a.m.
I'm super busy today. I would love to be more in the conversation because I kind of brought this whole thing in. Sorry.
No, well,
Just
we
got a ton of
have been talking about it. It is, I mean, obviously that's right in our ballpark, but if you're asking for proof of something that you're not going to get, I can't give you that. I can only give you a proof that level is horizontal. It seems like we're not needed, which is fine. I'm good with that. We'll just carry on doing what we do. If anybody does want to come and talk, we will be doing our usual logic, trivium, geometry, and free-for-all Fridays coming on this week. I'm not too sure about how long this model affliction Monday is, because I mean, it's just, you're talking about people who have delusions, and obviously a few of them pop into chat. I know, nice conversations with them, and no ridicule goes on because we've got quite a nice chat group here. So thanks for that, guys. I'm trying to deal with, I'm going to call them delusional people. When you fly in the face of known reality and known proofs within reality, then don't know, what do you do? We want to have more conversations with people, more conversations with normal people too. Hopefully there's a way to bring conversation back into the arena, but a good conversation. I know people like to listen to conversations that go on. We particularly at the weekend, we had a couple of great days where there's not many people come in, but the conversations that develop within that are amazing. Talking about you, Kevlar, and Buster. Buster's starting some brilliant stuff. Some good music stuff coming from Buster. So keep an eye out for all of that. And like I say, if you want to get involved, we're on Discord. If you don't want to go to Discord, let us know if there's another platform, another thing. If the conversations are out there to be had, if anybody wants to have a conversation, come on in. We're not as bad as everybody thinks and makes out we are. We are here to have conversations. We don't record these conversations. So if you're fear of us recording, that's not what we're after. We just after more points of view and more opinions about what people think of us, what people think the conversation should be, what people are interested in listening to. That's what we want to be trying to do. Hopefully we'll get some stuff lined up and some good stuff. What's that? We're going to go with blue again. I'll do the other model Affliction without blue. There is a thing coming up. Hopefully I'll sort it out, Blue. I don't know whether you're around, but Blue Marble Science wants to have a debate with me. I don't know whether he's going to be giving it to me now or whether he's going to be saving it for Nathan Oakley. I'm guessing that's the sort of thing that Nathan's going to be after. So maybe the debate about level and horizontal with Blue Marble. We'll have a conversation about it, Blue. We'll sort it out. Okie dokie. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Join us tomorrow, Logic Night.
Is it a hump or a drop? What do you say? You've got to twist your words in every which way, because the model will always dictate what you do. Everybody knows that you've got the model affliction blues. Is it a straight line, or does it curve? Some people don't clamp it, but that is absurd. We all know that the model dictates what you do, and everybody knows that you've got the model affliction blues. Model affliction, it's your addiction. Model affliction, it brings you so much pain. It's your ball and chain. Conflating curvature with elevation change. Just got your local distance just out of range. That oblique is gonna dictate everything that you do. And everybody knows that you've got the model affliction blues. Model affliction, it's your addiction. Model affliction, it brings you so much pain, and it's your ball and chain. It's your decision, defending the model position. You just don't know the geometric propositions. That old ball will always be illogical to you. That's why perpendicularity is a puzzle to you. Model affliction, it's your addiction. That old model of fiction. It brings you so much pain, it's your ball and chain. And everybody knows that you've got the model affliction blues.
Works really good with this guitar.
Is it a hump or a drop? What do you say? You got to twist your words in every which way. We all know that the model dictates what you do. Well, we know you got it, the model affliction. Model affliction. Model affliction. Model affliction. Well, we know you got it, the model affliction blues.